Buckle up, Dawg Pound, because the dust is finally settling on the massive trade that shook our entire organization to its core. It's been a week since our superstar defensive end headed to the West Coast, and while the initial shock was brutal, we need to talk about what this actually means for our future. Was this a heartbreaking loss or a necessary step toward rebuilding our championship dreams? We've got some major positives to break down, including a massive draft haul and a hungry new arrival on the defensive line. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and comment below. The shockwave that hit the Dawg Pound last week following the trade of Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams has finally begun to settle across the league. Now that the initial dust has cleared, we can look past the immediate reaction and examine exactly what this transaction means for the organization as it navigates the 2026 season. It is undeniable that losing a player of Myles Garrett's magnitude creates a massive void on the defensive side of the ball. He was a force that commanded double teams and changed the geometry of every offensive game plan he faced. However, as news of the deal unfolded, it became clear that this shift was ultimately a response to the trajectory Myles Garrett expressed back in the 2025 offseason, specifically his stated desire to chase a championship ring. When a superstar player makes it known that he is seeking a change of scenery to reach that specific professional goal, the franchise is often forced into a corner where a departure becomes inevitable. Rather than holding on to a player whose focus was directed elsewhere, the front office managed to execute a transaction that provides a path forward. While the absence of Myles Garrett is felt throughout the facility, the move was structured to bring back tangible assets that address long-term needs. This is not about celebrating the loss of a superstar, but rather understanding the mechanics of the deal that was finalized. The organization now moves into a new phase, one where the focus shifts toward utilizing the capital gained from the Rams to reshape the depth chart. The departure of such a prominent figure is a significant turning point, yet the reality of the situation necessitated a strategic pivot to secure the future of the roster in 2026 and beyond. One of the most significant components of the trade involving Myles Garrett is the influx of draft capital that now rests in the hands of the front office. Specifically, the acquisition of an additional 2027 first-round pick serves as a primary pillar of this transaction. For a franchise that has been in a cycle of roster reconstruction for decades, the ability to accumulate high-end assets remains a critical factor in long-term planning. While critics might point to the fact that this pick will likely fall toward the end of the first round, the utility of such a selection cannot be overstated. By adding another premium pick to the 2027 arsenal, the team now possesses the flexibility to maneuver during the draft, perhaps even bundling assets to target a top-tier quarterback in what is projected to be a loaded class. This provides a clear objective benefit to the organization's salary and draft structure moving forward. Some observers have voiced frustration that the haul did not include a higher volume of first-round selections, yet when evaluating the total package, the inclusion of proven talent helps balance the scale. The trade was designed to provide multiple avenues for improvement, ranging from immediate roster stability to future draft positioning. By securing that 2027 first-rounder, the team ensures that the loss of Myles Garrett results in more than just empty snaps on the defensive line. It transforms a singular difficult decision into a broader strategy that keeps the team's options open. As the 2026 season progresses, the value of that specific draft pick will remain a focal point for the front office, representing the long-term dividend of the decision to part ways with their former star defensive end. While the draft capital provides a look at the long-term outlook, the immediate arrival of Jared Verse is the central reason this deal carries weight for the current roster. Getting Jared Verse as part of the return package for Myles Garrett stands out as a best-case scenario for the defense. At just 25 years old, Jared Verse enters this environment with an already impressive track record, having earned Pro Bowl honors in each of his first 2 seasons in the NFL. This is not a project or a developing player. It is an established, high-performing individual who has demonstrated an elite ability to disrupt opposing backfields. Because he is still in the early stages of his career, the expectation is that he will continue to evolve and refine his game in the coming years. This gives the coaching staff a foundational piece to anchor the defensive line immediately following the departure of Myles Garrett. Furthermore, the arrival of Jared Verse was marked by a visible intensity and an outward display of commitment. His initial comments upon arriving in town emphasized a drive to be the best every single day, a sentiment that aligns with the immediate needs of the defense. While no one is suggesting that he is a carbon copy of Myles Garrett, Jared Verse brings a level of production that will be vital in filling the void left by such a major trade. His presence on the field represents the primary way the team plans to maintain its defensive identity. By integrating a player of this caliber, the team has ensured that the position remains a strength rather than a significant liability as they move forward into the middle stages of the 2026 schedule. Why does this matter right now for the team? The answer lies in the ongoing search for an identity in the post-Myles Garrett landscape. This is a critical transition because the team was famously reliant on his individual brilliance to carry the defensive unit. Without him, the collective expectation shifts toward the entire unit, stepping up to compensate for his production. The departure of Myles Garrett also creates a vacancy in the leadership structure of the locker room. During his time in Cleveland, the narrative surrounding his tenure often centered on a perceived lack of vocal leadership, including his notable absence from off-season workouts. This creates a vacuum that is waiting to be filled. The team is currently in a state where it is desperate for a player to seize the mantle as the definitive face of the defense and serve as a rallying point for the younger players. Jared Verse has the opportunity to become that individual. As the team waits to identify a future face of the franchise at the quarterback position, having a vocal, high-energy leader on the defensive side of the ball is the next best thing for the organization. The impact on the current season is clear. The defense cannot afford a regression in performance or accountability. If Jared Verse can step into that role and lead by example, the team will avoid the common pitfalls that occur when a superstar exits. It is a moment of significant recalibration for the entire squad. The focus is no longer on what was lost, but on whether the infusion of new energy and a different style of leadership can stabilize the group and keep them competitive as the schedule intensity increases throughout the remainder of the 2026 campaign. Looking at the final picture of this trade, the narrative for the remainder of the 2026 season is now defined by the transition from the era of Myles Garrett to this new, collaborative effort. The organization made a calculated decision to pivot, prioritizing both future draft assets and the immediate inclusion of Jared Verse. This process acknowledges the reality that the team was at a crossroads. By choosing to move forward, the front office has provided a clear path for players like Jared Verse to establish their own influence on the field and in the facility. The success of this move will be judged not by comparing individuals, but by how the team performs as a whole, now that the dynamic has fundamentally changed. The 2027 first-round pick remains the ultimate safety net, offering the flexibility to pivot again if the team needs to make a massive splash for a quarterback in the future. Meanwhile, the daily grind in the building remains, with a renewed focus on building a cohesive defensive unit that functions without relying on a single player to carry the load. The fans in the Dawg Pound are watching closely to see how this transition impacts the win column during the 2026 season. It is a period of adjustment for the staff, the players, and the organization alike. By securing Jared Verse, the team has avoided the worst-case scenario of a complete defensive collapse. The path ahead is clear. Focus on development, lean on the new leadership, and manage the assets obtained to ensure the team remains on a competitive footing. This trade marks a definitive end to one chapter and the deliberate start of a new one, as the organization continues its work on the field.